On her special day, my partner openly expressed gratitude to her former boyfriend for setting a high standard. The crowd cheered. Then she looked my way and added, an appreciation to him as well, I suppose. I remained seated without a word. 48 hours later, she discovered the consequences of testing a guy's limits. The space was packed with strangers, all chuckling and sipping wine that I'd funded. It was my girlfriend Emily's 30th celebration, something she'd organized for ages. The motif was old-school glamour, and she embodied the leading lady flawlessly. I was merely the backdrop, the fellow ensuring the food stayed stocked and the bubbly continued pouring. The highlight was the speech. Emily positioned herself in the middle, raising her flute. Her closest pal, a lady called Sarah who always eyed me like I was dirt under her heel, was right there, glowing. I simply wanted to acknowledge all for attending. Emily started, her tone rehearsed and sharp. Hitting 30 is a major turning point, and I wouldn't be who I am without the incredible folks around me. She listed them out. Her encouraging folks, her fantastic buddies. Then she halted for emphasis, her gaze sweeping the group until it fixed on a good-looking, arrogant dude toward the rear. And a particular shout-out to my wonderful pal Ryan. She declared, her words laced with feeling. My previous flame, sure, but also the guy who really showed me my worth in a relationship. He elevated the expectations for what a companion ought to be, and I'll always cherish our shared moments. The place burst into cheers. Folks applauded. A few even hooted. Ryan, the old flame, offered a polite nod. It was a touching, heartfelt instant, a flawless bit of image management. Then, as the noise faded, Emily's glance shifted to me, over by the drinks area. Felt like a minor addition, a quick, offhand look. And thanks to him too, I reckon, she mentioned with a slight flick of her wrist toward me. Some of her pals giggled softly. The intent was obvious, struck with the accuracy of a precise hit amid 50 witnesses. Ryan was the benchmark. I was the side note, the chap who sufficed temporarily but not enough to warrant a proper call-out. I held back. I didn't wince. I simply lingered there, my face steady, and took a deliberate drink from my glass. My thoughts, though, were already racing. The trigger had activated. In my profession, you avoid getting sentimental during an assault. You turn tactical. Emily had just executed an unwarranted, open strike on my standing. She viewed it as a societal maneuver. She didn't realize she'd initiated conflict with a man who orchestrates strategies professionally. The battle had commenced. To clarify, I'm not a pushover. I don't get manipulated. I'm a strategist for political races. My role is to secure triumphs. I handle intricate, frequently imperfect contenders and craft a tale that drives success. I conduct rival investigations, oversee communications, direct the news flow, and pinpoint and leverage the vulnerabilities of adversaries. My whole existence revolves around planning, image, and the merciless implementation of a scheme. I encountered Emily 8 months back. I just wrapped up the toughest race of my life, a victorious yet exhausting congressional contest that had drained me entirely. I was in what I term a downtime phase. I required a respite from the intense realm of governance. I sought something straightforward. Emily fit that bill. She was attractive, enjoyable, and hassle-free. I recognized her type. Her existence was sustained by a modest inheritance and various ventures that never materialized. She fixated on her former Ryan, a fellow from established wealth who represented the seamless achievement she desired. I spotted all the warnings. Her frequent status mentions, her relaxed consumerism, her craving for external approval. But I wasn't seeking a lifelong mate. I wanted a brief diversion, an undemanding personal endeavor as I regained my energy. I was upfront with her initially. I stated I wasn't after commitment, that I was recovering from a grueling role. She consented. The setup was basic. I supplied the security and comforts she relished, and she offered the light-hearted, relaxed company I craved. It was a shared, temporary agreement. The issue arose when she began viewing the setup as a lasting role, and her conduct, as shown at her event, had turned unsatisfactory. She hadn't merely offended me. She'd openly labeled me as lesser. In the arena of strategies, that's a storyline you must dismantle before it spreads. So while I stood amid the resuming festivities, I didn't feel wounded. I sensed the thrilling buzz of a fresh initiative launching. My rivals? The Emily Ryan coalition. My aim? Utter dominance. That evening, once the final visitor departed and Emily was out cold in bed, I retreated to my study and outlined the strategy blueprint. Update 1. A strong initiative begins with thorough groundwork in analysis. You can't overcome a foe you don't comprehend. Thus, for the initial 2 days post-event, I transformed into a solo rival analysis operation. My focuses were Emily and her idolized former, Ryan. I began with Emily. I possessed much of the info already. Over the last 8 months, I'd been the main provider for her extra spending. I reviewed my banking records, carefully noting each outlay. The luxury attire, the $500 meals with Sarah, the wellness retreats, the short getaways. I wasn't only monitoring the funds. I was charting her full way of life network. I knew her backers, me, her main allies, her shallow companions, and her central theme, an existence of seamless opulence. Next, I shifted to Ryan. He was the phantom in our connection, the ideal she endlessly measured me against. His outward persona was impeccable. He led a trendy innovation firm, piloted a classic racer, and his social feed was a showcase of his ideal existence. But in my field, you discover that the glossier the facade, the deeper the hidden flaws. I enlisted a contractor, an online investigation specialist I employ for unearthing scandals on political foes. I supplied Ryan's details and his firm's title. I sought nothing unlawful, merely a transparent view of his monetary and career truth. As my specialist probed, I launched stage 1 of my agenda, storyline disruption. Emily remained happily oblivious. She assumed I'd simply been grumpy at her gathering. She attempted to mend fences the following day. You were so silent yesterday, she complained, sulking. You didn't even say I was stunning. I merely claimed I was exhausted. I allowed her to think her minor dominance tactic had succeeded, that I was the defensive party. My opening action was understated. A key element of Emily's societal position was a philanthropic board she served on. It involved a grand, elegant fundraiser annually. She didn't contribute effort. She simply enjoyed her name listed. I, however, had contributed substantially to the cause under my name some months earlier, something she boasted about often. I contacted the board's leader, someone I knew through work. I noted that owing to asset adjustments, I had to withdraw my contribution this year. I was courteous, regretful, and nonspecific. I anticipated the follow-up contact, from the leader to Emily, inquiring about issues with her lavish partner. The repercussions were swift. Emily challenged me that night, her tone quivering with fury. What have you done? She insisted. Cynthia from the board reached out. She mentioned you canceled your gift. You're embarrassing me. It was a financial choice, Emily. I responded evenly, not glancing from my screen. Economic shifts have occurred. I'm redirecting my resources. This isn't about resources, she yelled. This concerns my image. You did this to retaliate for my words at the event. What you uttered at the event was merely information, I answered, finally facing her. It assisted me in reassessing my investment yields. The fundraiser evidently is a poor allocation. This was a deliberate step. I was communicating in her familiar dialect, that of societal value and prestige. I just diminished her chief resource. As she recovered from that, my specialist returned with the treasure trove I'd anticipated. Ryan's innovation firm, FutureForge, was a total facade. It lacked offerings, income, and was depleting funds rapidly. Its sole backing stemmed from a few initial backers, largely associates of his affluent dad, and various costly personal borrowings. Ryan wasn't an innovation prodigy. He was a privileged heir pretending at business with others' capital. The document also held another gem. Ryan's classic racer, the one he flaunted everywhere. It was rented, a pricey rental endorsed by his dad, and he lagged 2 months on installments. This formed the heart of my rival's foundation. A deception. And I was prepared to unveil it. Update 2. The following stage of the initiative was to arm the rival analysis. An effective strategist doesn't merely disclose harmful data. They construct a tale from it. They form a narrative the audience grasps and that outlets will spread. My intended viewers weren't the masses. It was the narrow, elite circle of financiers and elites that Ryan and Emily occupied. I set up a fresh, untraceable email. From it, I composed a briefing. It was styled in the straightforward, evaluative manner of a funding assessment. The header was, an unrequested evaluation overview on FutureForge. The briefing was a triumph of enterprise takedown. It detailed, with painful precision, the firm's fiscal state. It covered their depletion pace, their absence of a functional offering, and a forecast indicating bankruptcy in under half a year. It avoided claims. It simply stated realities. The closing section was a compilation of accessible documents revealing Ryan's pattern of unsuccessful endeavors. all discreetly supported and then concealed by his dad. I dispatched this briefing to 3 individuals. Ryan's dad, the primary backer in his venture, a figure notorious for his sharp dealings, and a prominent regional commerce reporter who adored tales of collapsing ventures. As that virtual explosive primed, I proceeded to erode Emily's leftover foundations. Her top confidant, Sarah, was a vital consultant in her entitlement strategy. Sarah served as a style consultant at an upscale retailer. Her position hinged on her repute and clientele. I knew from overhearing their chats that Sarah often took garments from the shop for a few days and returned them come Monday. It was a typical, though dishonest, routine. I also knew she aided Emily similarly, applying her staff reduction to acquire costly ensembles that Emily would don once for a photo share and then refund. I placed another untraceable call, this time to the retailer's enterprise security line. I alerted that a worker at their main outlet was operating an advanced refund scam, draining the firm of substantial sums. I gave Sarah's identity, and I recommended examining the monitoring videos and stock records for the prior half year, focusing on premium goods refunded on Monday starts. With my main adversaries marked, I simply awaited the mechanics to unfold. The initial blast originated from Ryan's side. The Commerce Reporter published an article shortly after, a harsh critique of FutureForge, labeling it an ego-driven scheme and an example of generational privilege. The chief backer, enraged at the deception, retracted his support and warned of legal action. Ryan's dad, openly shamed, ultimately severed ties with his offspring. Ryan, frantic, contacted Emily, likely for aid, but Emily faced her own turmoil. Sarah had lost her employment. The retailer had scrutinized the videos and uncovered ample proof. She was not just terminated, but the retailer pursued charges for stealing. Sarah, in distress, promptly faulted Emily, informing the retailer that Emily had coerced her. The pair were now embroiled in a fierce conflict, charging one another as the instigator. Emily's realm was collapsing. Her societal rank vanished, her closest pal became her foe, and her ideal ex-lover was exposed as a con. She was spiraling, and she hadn't yet grasped I was the architect of her downfall. She approached me a week following the Ryan exposé. She was weeping. Her entire existence was unraveling. Ryan had ended things, claiming he must prioritize his issues and she was a hindrance. Sarah was vowing to litigate against her. She was an outcast. I can't fathom what's occurring. She wept, perched on the side of our sofa. My sofa. It appears you're facing some instability in the environment, I remarked, my tone steady. She gazed at me, her expression puzzled. May I remain here briefly? She pleaded, her voice faint. I lack alternatives. No, I stated. Our pact has concluded. It's time to seek a fresh role. I presented her a container. I went ahead and gathered some of your belongings. She was truly solo now. Final update. A month has passed since I started the initiative. Well, the conclusive outcomes are here, and it was an overwhelming win. After I directed her to depart, Emily suffered a total collapse. She had no funds, no allies, and no opportunities. Her parents, who had perpetually indulged her, were managing the economic and societal repercussions from Ryan's public failure and couldn't maintain her in her usual manner. She attempted to start a defamation effort against me. She and her remaining circle tried to portray me as a ruthless, emotionless villain who deserted her during hardship. But they lacked a forum. Their networks were destroyed. And crucially, I dominated the storyline. I performed one last action. I provided a private, unofficial discussion to the identical commerce reporter who had revealed Ryan. I presented it as the account of a prosperous independent individual who had been preyed upon by a band of status seekers, only to reveal a network of scams and trickery. I omitted Emily's name, but the specifics were so exact that those aware recognized precisely whom I referenced. The account depicted me as the wronged party who had cleverly escaped a toxic scenario. It was the ideal rebuttal tale, and it protected me from her assaults. 2 days post that article's release, Emily appeared at my entrance. She wasn't furious now. She was shattered. She was bawling, imploring me to reconcile, admitting a grave error. I permitted her to speak. Once finished, I simply observed her. You haven't erred, Emily, I declared. You've executed a disastrous initiative. Your approach was defective, your communications erratic, and your primary backers undependable. You selected the incorrect adversary. She merely gaped at me, the ultimate dreadful awareness emerging in her gaze. This was your doing, she murmured. Everything. The article, Ryan, Sarah, all of it. I oversee initiatives, I stated, my tone as icy and level as a survey result. You openly assaulted my integrity. I regarded it as a contribution in kind to my initiative. I utilized your strike to mount a response. You believed we shared a bond. We were in a contest, and I always prevail. I shut the entrance. That marked the final encounter. I learned from a shared contact that she relocated to her parents' place. Her inheritance depleted, and she's currently employed as an office assistant at a medical clinic. Ryan confronts several legal battles from his past backers. Sarah continues handling the judicial fallout from her refund scheme. My retribution wasn't about shouting or ranting. It was about tactics. It was about employing my professional skills in my private affairs. She perceived me as a dull, reliable supporter, a minor detail in her dazzling narrative. She overlooked that the unassuming fellow at the rear often directs the whole production. She assumed she was the contender. She never comprehended she was merely the rival. And the rival had no hope,